Welcome to Bounce, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of product teams, the challenges they face, and the incredible stories of resilience that emerge. I'm Molly Cox, your co-host, a product designer with a knack for navigating through the storms of creativity.
And I'm your co-host, Claire Flowers, a product manager who's seen it all, the highs, the lows, and everything in between.
Each week, we'll bring you tales of product traumas, those moments that test our limits, they push our boundaries, and sometimes bring us to our knees.
We're talking about career flops and follies and those pivotal moments when everything seems to fall apart.
But as we know, the harder you fall, the higher you bounce. We'll explore with our guests their toughest challenges,
The actions they took to overcome them,
and how these experiences have shaped their careers and continue to impact them today.
So join us in this journey of resilience, growth, and bouncing back stronger than ever.
Well, welcome, Chris. We're super excited to have you on the show. I've followed you a lot on LinkedIn and always am so appreciative of the posts and content that you create for others. I know you come from a long line of product design. You actually started out as a computer science major, perhaps, and then dropped out and became a business graduate and then a designer. So you kind of had all of these zigzags until you found your way into design. And now you're this awesome content creator on LinkedIn. Also, the founder of UX Playbook, which I myself and my team have used. We used it to shape how we're working in our own company. It was awesome. I actually want to show you all the stuff that we've been doing. And you were ex-head of design, and you've also been a consultant working with names like Google and Nike and Coke and all the things. So we're so thrilled to have you here. I want to kick this off, Chris, by just asking you a little bit about kind of where you are today and what you have going on.
Where am I today? Well, I'm in my office in Vietnam, but I think you're asking in general where I am. I am at this interesting intersection of sort of my hobbies emerging as my business. And right now, as you mentioned, the founder of UX Playbook, I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, well, where do we go next from here? Do I still love design as much as I did when I started? Is there something else that I can merge my passion and interest and things I want to write about into UX Playbook? Because fundamentally, I still love talking, working with, and collaborating with designers. But where is the next step? Because what got us here won't get us to somewhere else, right? And I need to be honest with myself, because I do not want to build myself a 9 to 9 prison, right? I want to make sure I'm really intentional and purposeful. If it's my own business, then I'm not a slave to it, and I actually design my lifestyle around it. That's where I am today. And what I've been working on is just the kind of day-to-day things of UX Playbook, like writing, speaking to other designers, see where I can help. But really, this is what I'm thinking about the most. Yeah.
So I want to get there, but I kind of also want to explore with you. I was reading UX Playbook and learning that, you got your dream job as a designer, but then had this epiphany of sorts, or a fork in the road, where you realize, like, wait a minute, this isn't what I thought it was. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey that got you to that point and what that felt like and how you really pushed forward into what you're doing today?
Yeah, so the journey to the dream role, so super non-traditional start. And I think a lot of designers potentially have the same path, where it's like dropped out of CS, business graduate, and then sort of fell my way into design. And I still remember I was flying to Seattle when I first got my product design job. And on the flight card, I had to fill out occupation. And when I wrote designer, I was like, holy crap, I made it, right? So that was the first dream job moment for me, because I was like, someone's actually paying me to move pixel on the screen. That's crazy. Like, that's crazy, right? And then fast forward, when I got into design, and I said to myself, like, hey, I want to do this for a really long time. So, throwing out that stupid 5-year goal thing. It's like, I want to lead my own design team, X amount of people, whatever it was. And 4 years later, I actually had the chance to do that. It was a couple of decisions. It was like, I love the role that I'm in, but it's not fulfilling me like ambition wise, right? And I was like, what do I do? It's a great role. I get to do like whatever I want, right? I was the manager of our seniors on our team. Then there was like, okay, move to like Meta, back to London, and sort of, get the brand on your CV kind of thing. And then it was like, oh, someone's given me an opportunity to like lead this role of like the whole organization, not just a manager, but leading a team of 15 to 20 designers across 4 different regions. And it was like, oh, someone's handing me this like responsibility. So side tangent, just before I accepted that role, because it had everything on paper that I wanted, but a few people that left that company and joined the company that I was working at the time said, don't go there. It's toxic as fuck. Like, just don't. I was there. I was
You're warned.
Yeah. So these guys were in like leadership roles as well, right? Like CTOs and like head of whatever. And they were like, trust me. And I was like, whatever, guys. Like, I think I can do better, or like, at least I'm going to give it a shot, right? I was just kind of naive in the sense of this. I'm still glad I did it. But yeah, I turned up, and within like a few months, I wanted to leave but couldn't, because I hired one of my ex-colleagues from Mexico, and he could sort of relocated. So I was like, I kind of got to stay for a while, right? So
that
yeah,
responsibility,
so
like your name's that,
yeah. So I kind of got there, and it was just like I really just tried to push through, and eventually I left. So to your question of like, how did I go on my own, and like where that led, it was it was never intentional. Okay, let's just throw it out there. I was just like, okay, I'm unemployed, let's work on something that I think will benefit other designers. And that was the genesis of UX Playbook, right? And it organically grew over time. And so I called this like year 0, where actually it's like 2 years, from 2020 when it started to 2022 when I started creating content. It had organically sold and made me like $4,000. 1 month in April, the previous month before starting to create content, it made like $1,000, and it was like, holy crap! Like, could this actually be a thing? And then it was like, okay, well, how do we promote this? Like, how do I spread it to more designers? How do I make the product better? Like, all of these things started coming up. And then that was that point of like starting UX Playbook. But from when I quit my job in 2020, I know I'm monologuing, sorry guys, but
we love all the details.
We love the monologue. Keep going.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's just like this. Yeah. Okay, so it's from 2020 to 2022 when I started UX Playbook, to from when I quit my head of design job. I was stuck in Thailand. I moved back to Vietnam, and I worked on a couple of projects with friends, like some failed things, and just kind of experimenting. Like, I was like not really in a rush to jump back into such a toxic role. I kind of got a bad taste from where I was. Also damaged my confidence like hugely, because I was like, oh, I failed my dream job, right? I was just like, oh. So decided to do other things with friends and kind of follow the nose and follow the passion. Like, I did video editing. Then a friend wanted to partner up to start like a Web3 startup. That was kind of the hot thing then in 2021. So I was like, okay. And then some like agency stuff. So there was a lot of like just trying this thing and like just kind of seeing where it is. I wasn't like frantically interviewing for UX roles. That wasn't like fun anymore to me. And then yeah, when UX Playbook, when we committed to UX Playbook, it was like the first month we earned $400. Yay us, right? The second month we got 2,000, and then the third month we got $4,000. It was like, holy crap! Like, the power of writing online is super underrated. I mean, it's like everywhere now, but back when I started, I was like, wow, this actually works. So from there, I still didn't fully commit to UX Playbook, went to like a startup incubator and all this other stuff, like got distracted. But I think I'm through the distractions of things not working and it's sucking the energy out of me. I'm kind of like, okay, I need to like think about this business like it's a real thing and a real baby. And also the evolution of it into like integrating with life, because all the other stuff didn't really integrate well. And I think that's kind of why it failed as well. But long story short, that's how I got here.
Question. Well, okay. So there's a lot to unpack in what you just said. I have like 8 questions in my head for you. But so I think one of the poignant moments is, 2020 happens. The world is undergoing this pandemic. Chris says, "I'm out." He abandoned ship of of work and decides to go out on his own. But right before that, when you went to this organization, you were forewarned that there was some toxicity there, that you may not like it. And you said a couple months in, sure enough, things started to crop up. I actually want to know from your perspective, without getting into whatever detail, what made that environment feel so toxic to you? I think so many times we are warned about those things, and if we've never experienced it, it's hard to see what it is directly in front of us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I just want to add something to that. So the person who interviewed me was like the CEO of like Lazada. Imagine it's like the Amazon of Southeast Asia. And I was going to work with him, but when I turned up, he quit. And I was like, thanks for telling me, guys, like that my manager is no longer my manager. So who do I report to? So I report to the CEO, and I never had a one-on-one with him. So that's the first sign of a red flag. You never speak to your manager one-on-one. I don't think I ever saw him. I probably saw him like 3 times, and we were in these like massive meetings where it's like the whole company. So he was there by, like he had to be there. So that's the first red flag. The other red flag was that the people hated change. People like I think that's quite normal in lots of circumstances, but they're so like this is the way it's always been done and we'll only ever do it this way. And there was no like appetite to improve, even though on the surface they said yes. But because I was working with like the department heads, right? So they were like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then turn around, nothing gets done from their end. And there wasn't like that spirit of collaboration and innovation, within the process, within how things are done, like just everything, right? So I think that was another red flag. And then the third one, which I think I take responsibility for this as well, which is like culturally, I think that's good enough, right? And it's like, oh, I'll just clock in and clock out. Like I'm here, then I'm gone. And I think that I mean, up to you, right, in terms of how you want to approach work. But for me and for my organization, the designers, I'm like, well, we should strive to be better, right? Like, so that's good enough. Usually, piles on a lot of other like that's good enough. Like whether it's quality, whether it's like helping each other out, whether it's like celebrating others' wins. It's just like that's enough or like I can't be bothered basically is probably a better way to put it. Is just like a really terrible way to kind of approach things. And if you want to build like really awesome things, I just really try to tackle that culture aspect of it, but failed to do so. Yeah.
Do you find that the culture of that's good enough is bottom up or top down?
I think it's both. I think the CEO or leadership would always kind of push like, guys, come on, right? Like, let's go towards the flag or like whatever this milestone is, let's do it. But and then from um, their sort of second in commands or third in commands, I think it triggers down from the top. Like even though the CEO says it, he might not act like that or empower the people under him. And then from the bottom up is like, hey, if Tom is getting away with it, why can't I get away with it, right? So I think it's both, but it definitely does start from culture at the top. Like people aren't leading by example, and therefore if you see everybody else, especially people above you, not doing it, then you're not going to do it yourself, because why put in the extra work when you get paid the same?
And that almost feels symptomatic of that. Well, this is just the way we've always done it, right? And I've often heard from those larger organizations, or those FANGs, if you will, or kind of just some of those companies we build up in our minds. Oftentimes, they are so large that when you go in them, change is very difficult, because it's such a big ship that it's so hard to turn that ship around, right? And even if you try to bring in and instill just a little bit of culture and a little bit of flavor, it's often met with there's just too much going on. So, um, man,
Absolutely.
I feel that red flag.
Yeah, so I think one of the environments in which this came out was that our parent company was like one of the largest private conglomerates in the world. So it's actually big corp posing as a startup, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like one of the sister companies. So we share the same like HR team and structure and with all the other sister companies. So I think that's also a huge red flag there, where you're like, well, is it a startup? What kind of culture is it? And like, what ties do you have to, the investors or the sister companies, or the multiple layers in this like really complex network of companies? And that was something that I saw later, was like, holy crap, this is shit.
And I think that can be very tricky for people. I think that large organizations or big corporate organizations do have a reputation for a reason, because it's just the dynamics of those organizations oftentimes make it really hard to have that intensity culture. Whereas smaller organizations tend to be a little bit more nimble. And so it sounds to me like it was sold to you in a way that in the reality, it actually was, to your point, just like posing as a startup, but was actually a big corporation.
Absolutely. And I also want to add a caveat here for the people listening, which is that I basically only ever worked at startups. I actually grew up in a family who had their own business, right? Like my aunties, uncles, they had their own business. So like I've always been in that environment. So when I moved to like corporate, I was like, what is this? Get it off me, right? Like I was just, so I don't know any different. I've never been in like a 10,000 plus organization before. So it was just like, wow, this is somewhere that I just don't fit in. And if I play by the rules, arguably, I probably wouldn't be where I am today anyway. So let's just part ways, right?
Yeah. I'm very similar to you in that way. Startup is my world. I am a move fast. I like to call myself a gazelle. Just kidding. Um, but I love the move fast, go fast, and in those large corporations, it's a give or take. If you want to go into a large corporation, you have to understand that that may not be the culture, and you may be on a feature for 6 months, not moving super fast. So
Mhm.
but you're in this big, amazing organization. So it's very different for everyone. But you said something earlier also, Chris, that I want to kind of talk about just a little bit, in that as a designer, you reached a point where you felt, where do I go from here?
Mm.
What do I do now? And I feel no matter where we reach in our career, at some moment, that is always a pivotal spot as a designer. And whether it be, how do I move through leadership, or what's next for me in the IC world? Um, me personally, I am at this pivotal moment for me where I am a director of product design. We just talked about large corporations. If you want to be a VP of a large corporate, like VP of design, are only at large corporations, which are not in my wheelhouse. And so I'm faced with, well, do I go into product? What do I do next? So it sounds like for you, that next step was moving there. But what advice do you give to people who face that situation and are in similar scenarios that you may have been in? And how do you find that next step?
I think you gotta spend time just like reflecting and figuring out like, why do you want it? Like you have to go deeper with your questioning of just like, well, is it a status game? For me, it was quite like it was a status game, and it was like a accomplishment game, right? And it was like, how quickly can I climb the ladder? But then the other side, it was, Like, I want to prove to myself I could do it, and also that because I love it, uh, it will just give you more motivation, right? So there are multiple reasons of why someone would want to get where they want to get. So really be honest with yourself. If you don't know, ask like your other half or people around you. Like that helps, because sometimes you don't really know why you're doing what. Like you're telling yourself this story, right? But other people that are close to you might have a better vision. So of the reality, at least, or the perceived reality. So I think that's one. Deep reflection, ask folks around you, and then yeah, you have to speak to the folks of where you want to get to. So whether it's head of design, VP, like what is their life like, right? This is the design your life tip in the book, which is like, hey, you have to prototype what that is like, and therefore you should speak to as many people as you can. Can you get into the same rooms as these VPs? Can you simulate the VP's job somehow, or how many people can you reach out to? So I think those are the three things that I would do. And then like the final thing, which is just like, I mean, just go for it. You can always go backwards. Like most of the mistakes that you make aren't terrible mistakes, as long as you don't like burn the bridge of like fuck you guys, peace out, right? Like just like take the fucking laptop or whatever it is, right? Don't do that. Yeah, so don't burn that bridge. But I'm sure if you're a decent person and you provided value, you can just be like, yeah, it didn't work out. Now I'm back and better for it. And I think good managers and good leaders would be like, yeah, he needed to explore that side of himself, and now he knows, that this is the best place for him at the moment. So, yeah.
I think one thing you said earlier that really resonated with me was, or you didn't really say it, but this is what I took from it. Essentially, when you were in this really toxic environment, it seems like it really just like burned you, right? So like, and then you had this length of time where you were, trying different things, but also like, it sounds like you just took time to not have to be on a path, which is healing to me. I think like that right there is so healing. And I think that I was telling a friend just yesterday, I was like, we just recently went through just like a super hectic time at our company, and now it's kind of it. And then we had a period where it, I mean, was busy, but not super hectic. It wasn't like fight or flight mode. And now on the horizon, I kind of see some, some murky or like choppy waters coming. And I'm finding myself having a hard time. I'm a get up and go person. I actually do the best under pressure, but coming off times of intense pressure, I've really just learned that there is so much importance in healing from that, and like not, and giving yourself a little bit of grace for because your body needs time to actually just kind of like sit and rest. Of course, get your work done, but you're not necessarily having to be driving your ambition constantly. And it sounds like the fruit of that for you is where you're miraculously where you need to be. But that can be very scary, not for people who are ambitious and like to have a plan and like to be making steps forward. I think that to me sounds like the hardest part.
Absolutely, because I think we always are taught, at least we hear through all the channels, that you need to plan, you need to have a goal, you need to do all this stuff, right? But then the pandemic happened, I quit, I threw out all my goals, I don't even have goals these days. I'm just like, actually there's no one way to succeed, and that way of succeeding kind of sucked. Succeeding, I put in quotes. So yeah, I think it's definitely healthy to slow down and reflect. And if you are lucky enough, like I was, to have that time, just try not to think about work, or if work still excites you, if that topic of like, let's just say product management or design or guitar or whatever it is still excites you and it happens to be work, sure, do that. But like the reflection and doing stuff just for the sake of doing it is really healing, and it's really freeing. And I think that's why the allure of like entrepreneurship is so great, because it's like, oh, you can do what you want, like whenever you want. Of course, that's also a bit of a lie. But it starts with that seed, right? It starts with the, oh, if I could do anything, what would I do? And that's a great question just to ask yourself now and again during these slow times, I think.
I think it's also important to remember as well. I often find myself in conversations with mentees over the same subject, those that have potentially been laid off or lost their jobs, to really take this moment and figure out how you want to move forward. But most importantly, give yourself the grace to understand. I think that's something we all miss so much in our lives, especially with our own negative self-talk, is really listening to what we want. And I mean, there's a lot of clutter on LinkedIn right now. There's a lot of people telling you you should do this and you should do this, and there's a lot of people even pushing being being an entrepreneur. Some it's just not for some people,
Mhm.
but I understand the immediacy and need to get that job immediately. But we also need to sit in that moment and give ourselves the grace to know where we are, how we want to move forward, and what our best next step is.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep. So also, when you okay, so now we've gone from 2020. Chris is off, and you started writing. What led you to writing, Chris? Like, how did you find that? How did you and you started doing it, and what made you know it started working? And how? Yeah, just how?
Hell. Okay. So I had written a couple of things, like obviously UX Playbook and some articles on Medium, not really making it a habit, but I knew I enjoyed the creative process of doing it, right? Like for me, it was kind of like design. It's like, well, what's my message? How do I reach these people? Like, how do I craft a narrative? Like, how polished does it need to be? Like, all these things that I draw parallel to design. But frankly, it's the lowest barrier to entry in terms of marketing, right? So it was Twitter and LinkedIn. Okay, those were the two platforms. Actually, we focused on Twitter first because design Twitter, and then there's a lot of entrepreneurs there. So it's kind of a easier way to digest content on Twitter as well, and forcing yourself to write well in X amount of characters. So what we did was just repurpose the content. And so that's where my fascination from writing came, is actually not before doing it, but because I did it, it kind of developed over time. So now it's figuring out, where am I in the content funnel, the top, the middle, or the bottom? What do I want to drive people to? What's the emotion behind it? So it really wasn't some like strategic step. It was just like, okay, we need to do marketing. Okay, what's the easiest way to do marketing? Let's just write online. And that was it. And then it's been plus 800 days now. And, you know, yeah, I try to keep them. I say we because it's me and my partner doing this. She helps me, and she actually encouraged me to be like, yeah, we should promote UX Playbook. So I want to give her credit. Uh, yeah. So when I say we, yeah. So it's not just me, but yeah, writing wise, it was sort of a happy accident that I like it. Yeah.
Nice, nice. You know, so let's take it back to toxic environment real quick. I also think there's something important to note about when it's time to go. And what I really appreciate that you did is you said it's time to go. Now, in your circumstance, you didn't necessarily move on to the next spot, and not everybody can do that. But when you're within that organization and you're feeling all these things coming down, how how do you know it's time to go?
Yeah, I think you have to, one, be honest to yourself. So follow what your body's doing. So basically, I didn't turn up for a lot of the time, right? And
Yeah.
I'm one of those people anyway. So I do this in every company that I go to. So I've been hybrid, not by design, but earning the trust of my manager and needing time to focus on deep work. So I've been doing this since 2015, right? But I found myself even, I wouldn't say like even more like not present at this place, because I just like something inside me was like, oh, I don't want to go to work today. I'll just work from home, right? I'll just take these meetings at home. So first it's like noticing those signs that you really don't like where you are, and there will be some signals, right? Everybody is different. For me, it's just like physically not wanting to go to the office, even though it's 15 minutes away. It's like you have no excuse, right? But I didn't want to go there. And then the other thing is the interactions you have. Are they pleasurable? How do they make you feel? Are these people the people that you really enjoy interacting with, and you think, it gives you energy or it sucks energy out of you? That was a big thing for me. And then I think third, it's about the intrinsic excitement that I had, not like, and thinking about work, like, because I think a lot of the times when you're in like a director level, a head level, you're not doing the actual work. You're more thinking about where you want to go. You're strategizing, and these ideas kind of lead to something else. And like you might be road mapping or planning or planning an experiment or some kind of process. Was because I really like that stuff, but I wasn't like actively trying to do that stuff. Like I was in the state of that's good enough, right? So like I basically got brainwashed by this organization, is my story, that I got brainwashed by this organization so much that I believed what I was doing was actually wrong, right? And their way was right. And then I knew that, hold on a minute, is this sanity or insanity? It's like Shutter Island, right? Like what's real and what's not. And I think that moment of realization was just like, it's the pandemic. I think it was like May or June. I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm quitting anyway. Like, whatever. Like, I'm not going to hold out. I'm just like, if this isn't out of my life, then it'll be damaging me like forever. So I think it's really personal, right? And I think I had luxury, but notice those signals will appear over time. And then you could also, yet again, speak to folks around you to see how you're like behaving. Are you like some toxic asshole and being like a proper prick to everyone, right? So yeah, those are probably some of the things I would double click on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, we all have those own signals to ourselves. Like you physically don't want to go somewhere. I know for me, I become stubborn. Like if I don't want to do it, like, okay, I'm not like, I'll do it when I do it. Right. And so I think just listening to those internal moments that we tell ourselves, hey, something's not right, because we feel it. And then, but it's on our onus to take a step back and evaluate how we're feeling and where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that resonates so much with me. I really relate to that at a previous organization where I worked. I mean, I worked from home, and my wife actually was going into the office, and she came home, and I was not proud of this. I was like sitting on the couch, and I was like in a robe. It was 3 p.m. I had pillows propped up around me. I had my laptop on my feet propped up. My camera was not on, and I don't even know what I was doing. And she was like, this is
time to go.
She's like, this is the second time I've found you this way.
This isn't what we call work, Claire.
No, this is not good. This is not good.
You had cucumbers on your eyes.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, yeah, that's my like normal thing. So, but good thing I don't have other colleagues around me, so that's good.
Yes, when you're propped up on the couch, and your couch becomes your office, and you're just like watching an episode of SVU, and people are talking, and you're not even, it's time to go.
Yep. When spa day happens on the couch, and SVU is on, yeah, people are, yeah. No, so I think along the lines of that same topic, there's also something else really interesting happening today. And Chris, I know you and I have been involved in threads kind of communicating the same thing. And that's this very real aspect of, with a lot of layoffs that are happening, with a lot of these things, I find a lot of people are not necessarily finding themselves happy in their current position. but also feeling as though I can't make a move right now. That's not fair for me, right? And this whole idea that, well, I should feel lucky to be where I am. I should be grateful to have the job that I do. And while I agree with all those things, I think our own mental health is important as well. So what advice would you give to those who are maybe currently facing that situation right now, questioning these things, but also have this almost survivorship mentality?
I would say to those people, it's all in your head, and you need to. The only way that you're going to get through this is if you sort of pull on the string to your own internal monologue. So, like, I'm not happy. I wonder if there's something better outside, or outside this organization, or another job, or another industry. So, just make the first step to pull on that thread. I'm not saying that you're going to change your profile on LinkedIn saying open for work, right? That's not what you're going to do. That's very disruptive. But could you start to reach out to people in the DMs? Could you start to look at some jobs? Can you start to speak to friends and throwing feelers out without, kind of disrupting the status quo of where you're in at the moment? But I think a lot of times it's just that mental barrier. And really, it's like not reality, and it's perceived reality. So I think the best way to kind of get out of this state of like, I should be lucky, but also I want something else, because I think the people that say I should value what I have now, right, should value, they don't. Right, they're almost thinking the opposite. They're just saying this stuff so they don't seem like an asshole, right, that they want more, or like that whatever, right, like that they're whatever. So it's like, actually saying to yourself, like, what can I do to make me feel a little bit better? What is the first tiny step? And I think they deserve it. Like, you can just tell yourself you deserve it, man. Like, there's no, like, why wouldn't you deserve it? Why would someone else deserve it? Right. So, and of course, like, entitlement is a big thing, but like, I mean, you're kind of the driver in your own race. So if you're not driving, who else is driving? Right. Like, is it on, like, are you saying, Jesus, take the wheel? Right. Like, that's crazy.
Calm
Like,
down,
don't
Carrie
do
Underwood.
that. So yeah. So yeah, and I think I speak about this a lot, but like, just the theme of it is just like ownership. Like, you just have to, like, be honest with yourself and be like, what do I really want out of this? And it's okay to stall, because I think sometimes we need to soak in that emotion of like, I don't know what I'm doing, or, like, I'm unhappy, but really to kind of like soak that in so you know exactly what you feel. And sometimes it's like 1 week for people, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. But realize that the only way you're going to get yourself out is actually if you just get off the couch like Claire did and do something else, right?
Get off the couch,
So,
Claire.
I did. I got off. I haven't been back since.
There you go. Sorry about that analogy.
No, I love it. I love it. You're right.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, get off the couch.
Just get off the couch, Claire. We're gonna say that from now on. In fact, it's gonna become our tagline. So
it's no longer bounce, it's get off the couch.
Get off the couch. I love it. But Chris, you also so we've talked a lot about UX Playbook, but you've also launched this new awesome program, the Job Sprint, right? So tell us a little bit about your thoughts there and kind of what you're aiming to do with that.
Yeah, so it was yet again another experiment. So my products are experiments based on problems I see in the market that I think I have a different way to solve. And it started from just thinking about like, what is the most common things that people say to me, right? And clearly at the time it was like layoffs and help me get a job, Chris. And I was like, okay, cool. So that just overwhelmingly was the sentiment I got. So I was like, okay, let's create a product around this. And actually, originally it was going to be a cohort. So and I did end up doing the cohort, but it was trying to validate if I could have a small class of folks that will pay me quite a lot, right, as I'm in the game of business, to do this. And so when the first person paid me, I actually had to make the materials. So I actually just had the messaging there, right? This is classic MVP stuff, Dropbox type thing. Like, here's a landing page. It's not really real, but it is real. Okay, so then that kind of made it real. And then throughout that, I crafted the materials, and I had the hindsight of like recording everything. So from that, I was like, I love like a small class, but it's just not like what I want to do every single day and just teach this class. So I'm just going to turn it into a digital product, like I do with a bunch of other things. And then, and it to be more accessible to, like, thousands of people, right? People can just go and download it and use it or whatever. So then I started sort of using the materials I recorded and to make a course out of it. And yeah, and that was quite hard. I mean, it's the longest time I've spent on a product, almost 6 months, potentially longer. Hundreds and hundreds of hours of editing. I've edited all the videos myself. So everything from the job sprint I did. And it was really painful. I'll be honest. It's like super painful to craft together because, yeah, I digress. But basically, yeah, over 150 lessons, a bunch of like workshops built in. So it's not just like I'm talking at you, telling you how to get a job. It's like, here's a 5-minute video or less of like why this is important, and then I'm going to have you do an activity that basically is like, maybe it's how to read a a job description, how to apply, where to research, how do you practice interview skills, what kind of questions they ask. So these most of these things are really, really active, and so you actually have to go do it. And if you're looking for a job anyway, you might as well sort of like integrate that workflow into yours, because clearly you've just been rejected 100 times. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to flip the spray and pray approach, which everybody keeps on talking about. That doesn't work, with a more like hyper tailored approach, and also reflecting back from the candidate's like unfair advantage. So that's what I'm trying to do with it. Yes, but I have one other thing I want to talk about, which is quite interesting, if I may.
Tell us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ooh,
So
my ears have perked.
okay, so this is really exciting because I'm thinking about this a lot. And remember when I said I'm trying to evolve my business with where my head's at, and I love serving designers, but is design the thing that I'm really, really passionate about, that I'll do for the next 10 years? I think the answer here is like, probably not. I'm not the best designer. I haven't had, 30 plus years of experience. Like, who am I to teach you about design? So, but I do have some things that I'm doing. So I would like to eventually evolve this business into something like, how do I help? So like the first stage one, is I help designers level up in their career. Stage two is I'm building a business. So could I theoretically help designers also go independent and build their own business? And then third stage, we won't even talk about that. So I've validated a few so I have a few coaching members that I help, like, that I'm going to help them build their creator business. So, and I have like more people coming in, like asking for help. So the demand is there. Whether or not I like it, yet again, through this kind of service model, is up for discussion. And how do I productize that? How does that scale? How does that evolve with what I really want to do? So it's not to say that UX Playbook is going to be gone forever, but I think there's a natural evolution to you as a person, and that should reflect the products you build and the things you talk about online as well, right?
I love that. And this is why I think designers make such good entrepreneurs, because we are in touch. We're so in touch with our emotions, but no, we're like empathetic towards others. We know where we are, what we want. And you blend that with entrepreneurship, and magical things happen. So that is so awesome to hear. Like, you're starting to help people coach. I mean, think about this. We started with Chris in the pandemic, in a toxic environment. He gave the finger, abandoned ship in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, and then said, what now? And then moved into, well, what is a designer? What are things that people need? And you saw a playbook that helped me. I'm going to help others. And then that started rolling very slowly. Then all of a sudden the market was shifting. And then we had people like getting laid off and needing help finding a job, to all the way, okay, now I want to be an entrepreneur. So I'm going to ask Chris to help me start my own business. So that spectrum, Chris, I don't know if you've taken a step back and looked at it like that, but that's pretty wild, man. And it's only 2024. So we're talking 4 years.
Yeah, your velocity is crazy.
Yeah, you got some high velocity, man. If you were an agile team, you'd be performing. So I love that. So what is your trajectory there? Are you kind of are you launching this out fully? Are you what's your plan look like for that?
I want to do it slowly. I want to prove that I can actually help others. So I'm going to be working really closely with 3 designers and hoping to launch their business. And the idea is that the money they pay me will, like, they will close business and I will basically pay for myself. That's the goal, right? So whether I can do that in like 2 months, 3 months is yet to be known. And so not only do I want to validate the offer, because I think the offer is there, but I also want to actually validate if it actually works. And then the leading from that is like, do I like to do it as well? Like, if it works and I don't like to do it, there's no point. So from there, I think the natural progression is like, I'm quite hands-on in the business and I try to help them as much as I can based on what I learn and what I'm doing day to day. And eventually, I think I would probably want a piece of the pie, because I think that folks need like, or they might need more help and more, like, if I have skin in the game, I'm just definitely going to be like on their side more, right? I'm going to care about them more, right? And their business, and be like, okay, like, what can we do? And just and really accelerate that, whether it's like time, like sweat equity or capital or anything I can help with. That means, and then we can basically just build this business together. So that's probably the final stage to the master plan, where it's like helping designers level them up in their career. That's the first step. Second step is actually helping them build a business together. And the third step is potentially owning part of their business as well. So then we can basically be in the long run, like basically be married when we're working on this business, right? And then God knows where from there. I mean, this is just me dreaming this up. Things always change, but in my head, that's kind of where I want to get to. And because I love starting new things and I love new ideas and I love working with designers, I feel like this is like, it's coming together now in terms of like all the things that I've done in my career and past, and just my personality in general. I feel like this would be a really good fit. I just need to make lots of money so then I can actually put it back into those businesses. Otherwise, this is not going to work, right?
That's great. So our listeners tuning in, how's the best way for them to connect with you, Chris?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can just type Christopher Nguyen, or you can find me with the handle UX Chris Nguyen on all the platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and whatever.
Great.
Fantastic. Well, we really appreciate your time today. Thanks for giving us some clarity on a lot of different topics. So we appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Thanks so much, Chris.
Thank you, Claire. Cheers.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you'd like to connect with us, check out our website at bouncepodcast.com.